Good evening. Hey, Kim. I'm so glad you're here. All right, we'll let a few more people get here. So, Kim, we're going to be talking about gardening tonight. So, that should be of special interest to you. At least I hope. Let me print out my notes right quick. Yes, all this behind me. This is yarrow. This is lemon balm. This is plantain. More yarrow. Yeah, lots of medicinal plants. All right. These racks that I have behind me, they, hey, my husband's on. He had oral surgery today, and so he's on heavy drugs. So he should be a lot of fun tonight. Philip, chime in whenever you like. So these racks back here, you can see right there, those are some cucumber plants that I've started. So all these have grow lights on them. And then when I'm not using them to start seeds, you can also use them to hang things from to dry. And here, I'll show you how I do it. So I do them with a rubber band and then this little S hook that just costs a few cents, and I buy them a lot at a time. And I just go like this, and I just put them on the shelf, and they dry. So, so say in the comments if you're here, say if you have a garden now. Do you have a garden right now? I do have lots of gardens. I have 19 raised bed. No, that's not right. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 19 raised beds out at the farm. And then I have 5 more here at the house. And then I have a big in-ground garden also. Philip, Texas is a community property state. So you do have gardens, because my gardens are your gardens. Kim is asking what I start seeds in. And at Lowe's and Home Depot, they sell bags of organic seed starting mix. And honestly, that's what I use. I looked around for a while to, hey, Malia, I'm so happy you're here. I looked around for, like, some people mix their own seed starting mix, like you get coconut coir and perlite and stuff. And for me, and how limited my time is, it just takes more time to order all those things in bulk. And then I need to mix it up. And now I've got a big bag of this that I have to put somewhere and a big bag of that. Whereas there's a Lowe's literally 3 minutes from my house, and I go buy like 5 or 10 bags at a time. And I just have them and I just rip it open and use it whenever I'm ready. So yeah, that's what I do. There are probably some more, homesteadery ways to do that, but that is just what I do. And so here in Texas, we kind of have 2 gardening seasons. One is in the spring, as soon as the frost is gone, which, Easter-ish. And so then we have a good long few months growing season. And then we enter this time that we're in right now, where it is just too hot. It is too hot for most things to grow. There are a few things that will grow. Peppers will usually grow in the heat. Okra will grow in the heat. There are some things that will grow in the heat, but like tomatoes, when it gets over, I think it's 91, 2, 3, something like that, they will not set fruit, and the fruit will not ripen when it's too hot. Tomatoes are very picky. They can't handle any frost, but once it gets over 90, which happens pretty fast here in Texas, then they stop ripening as well. So we can grow a lot of stuff, and then things really suffer once it's really hot. Then it'll cool off again, and we will have from probably September until it freezes, whenever it freezes. There's usually like a frost that comes November something. I forget what the actual first frost date usually is. So it'll, we have some good times there, and you can kind of run the odds. Last year I did fall tomatoes. I didn't get any spring tomatoes last year, none, which was odd because I was drowning in them this year. So last year I didn't get any in the spring. In the fall, I went ahead and left the plants on. They made tomatoes in the fall, and I was so excited. But then a frost came and killed all the plants before they could ripen. So that was a bummer. So do you have a garden now? If you have a garden, how's your gardening year been this year? I have had a great gardening year, and I'll tell you, I really think it is because of the irrigation, the drip irrigation that I put in all my beds. I really think that has made the difference. Because before, what I was doing was whenever I was out at the farm, I would stand there with a garden hose and water stuff, which drip irrigation is so much better for the plants versus overhead watering, or, watering on, especially because then they were getting watered like maybe once or twice a week. And this way they get watered every single day. I see my husband, Philip, and my grandniece, Malia, having a conversation about some board games that were sent. And Malia is saying they haven't checked their mail in a bit. And I have found that is a young person thing. Young people are not checking the mail as often. Like, I check the mail every day. I even find myself out there checking the mail on federal holidays because it's so much my habit that I can't stand it. So I guess because the younger generation, they don't get bills in the mail. They don't get anything exciting in the mail, so they're not used to checking it. But anyway, that's an aside. So somebody tell me in the comments, how has your gardening year been this year? I know Kim, who's in the comments, she only started her garden like literally today or this week. So she doesn't have anything to report. It's been a great tomato year for me. Peppers are coming in. I'm having great success with cantaloupe this year. I'm currently drowning in cantaloupe. So it's all very exciting. For several weeks, every time I'm out at the farm, which is basically twice a week, Wednesday and then Saturday. Yes, I know, Malia. Your aunt, KJ, she doesn't check the mail either. Oh, you didn't get any cantaloupe? Yeah, you should have taken some home. Anyway, ever since tomatoes have come in, I have been spending, it literally takes me 2 hours to go through all of the beds and harvest all of the tomatoes and all of the peppers and all of the cantaloupe and all of everything that needs to be harvested. And then the next step is that I'm drowning in it here at the house because, last night I made a quintuple batch of tomato basil soup. that's now in a pot in the refrigerator. And then over the next few days, I'll be canning it in a pint jars so that all winter I'll have tomato soup that I grew myself and made myself. But it's a lot of work, y'all. And what I really wanted to talk about tonight was this is the time of year it is hard to garden. Now's the time when you're sick of your garden. Like if you were to come out to Nonsense Farm, and I wish you would. I would love all of you to come. If you were to come out to Nonsense Farm, what you would see is a bunch of overgrown, on the verge of death tomato plants because they're about done. And so the beds need to be turned over. And while I've had a really successful garden year, and that means I've had lots of good plants, the things that grow well are not only the plants, but also the weeds. So the weeds are so out of control and the plants are so out of control. So it doesn't look like the nice, neat, tidy place that it was in the spring. And not only that, but it's hot here in Texas. It is hot. And so I want to talk about a few ways to kind of work around that and continue to be able to work your garden and not just abandon it, which is something that can easily happen. So for one thing, and this has not only to do with working your garden in the heat, but just gardens in general. So when I first started gardening, it was, I don't know, 13, 14 years ago. And it started with a single community garden bed at the Addison, Texas Community Garden. I love that place. It was one garden bed, and I would work it, and I loved it. And then pretty soon, I would have everything all in order there. And I think, man, I wish I had gardening to do. And so then at home, I started another garden bed. And then before too long, I had that going. And I'm like, man, I wish I had more space. And so I had all these different garden beds in the backyard. I had another one at the community garden at the kids' school. And, but I think it's important. You don't start with 19 raised beds before you've mastered one. It's really important to start small, because if you start large, you're going to get overwhelmed and you're going to walk away from it during July when it's 100 degrees outside. Now, I will say this year in Texas, I was just saying we haven't even reached 98 degrees up here yet, which I know if you're joining from up north, you would be dying in the heat that we have down here. But to us, it hasn't been that bad this year, but it's still darn hot. And it doesn't take much to really start sweating and really suffering. So besides starting small, which I think is a good idea anyway, then the other things are you have to go in the early morning. You just do. Like yesterday, I was out at the farm and I had my bee mentee, Celeste. I think mentee is the right word for somebody that you are mentoring. We met at the farm at 7 a.m. to get into the bees as soon as the sun was up. Early morning is the only way. That's right, Kim. Early morning. That's it. You can rest in the afternoon when it's 100 degrees outside, but you've got to do your outside stuff early in the morning. We were in the bees at 7 o'clock, and then I think it was 1:30 or something like that. We left. That's all we could do. So you have to get out there early in the morning. Another thing that is just vital to me is clothes that are quick dry. I don't even like this shirt, cotton t-shirts. I do not wear cotton t-shirts to work out in the garden or work out on the farm right now. It has to be quick dry. I've gotten a collection of 4 or 5 shirts and a few pairs of either capris or shorts. They have to be that quick dry fabric because cotton, it just feels stifling and you would think cotton is breathable, and it is, but it's no match for working outside in Texas in the summer. So I would say get at least one outfit of quick dry clothes. You can always wash them and just use them over and over again, but that's super important. Another thing that's super important is shade. So recently, Celeste and I went and got one of those pop-up shades at Home Depot, and we got it because what we do, we were going through the bees in the heat of the day because we had to, because it was about harvest time. And we popped it up and we put it over 3 hives at a time. And then after we'd worked those 3 hives, then we picked up the shade shelter and we moved it down to the next 3 hives. And so then we had shade the whole way. And that was much better. And so if you had just a couple of garden beds in your backyard, and now don't leave it up all the time. Obviously, your garden needs sunlight. But while you're out there pulling weeds or whatever you're doing, you could do that pop-up shade shelter so that you are in the shade while you're working your garden. So shade. You can't put your garden in the shade, but perhaps you can bring the shade to your garden temporarily while you're working. Then the other thing that I think is really important is have somewhere to cool off. Out at the farm, I am very blessed that I have a camper that has air conditioning. I learned the first year that I had it that it was super important that I leave the air conditioning on, because if I only turned the air conditioning on when I was coming out to the farm, it would be 120 degrees inside that camper and it would never cool off. So now it's always on, but when I leave there, I have it turned up to like 85 or 90. And then one of the things I do is I pull onto the farm and I turn the water on in the camper and whatnot. I turn the air down to like 75 or 70 so that it can be cooling down. Because once we've been through very many beehives or you've been working outside in the garden for very long, you need to have somewhere to go sit down and just really recover from the heat. You need to have a cool drink and you need to sit and cool off. So whether that's in the shade with a breeze or inside the air conditioning, really important to cool off. A lot of beekeepers this time of year really suffer with heat exhaustion if you don't really pay attention. And once you really suffer with heat exhaustion, it makes you more prone to it in the future. And you don't want to mess with that. That can be very, very serious. It's really important that you pay attention. And one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is drinking electrolytes. This is the one that I like, Element, LMNT, Element. This is my favorite, the grapefruit salt. To me, it tastes like Fresca, which was my dad's favorite soda. And so that's why I love it. But they are so good. But I keep these and I'll put 2 of them inside my water bottle and take it out with me and make sure that I drink that. And then a lot of water on top of that. So really important to get electrolytes. It's so easy to get lightheaded and everything. And you have to stay hydrated. So here's another thing. This time of year, like I mentioned before, the last thing most people want to be doing is working in the garden. That's ridiculous. If you're going to be outside, you just want to be in a swimming pool or something. However, I encourage you not to snooze on the Texas fall gardening season. There are so many great things about fall gardening in Texas. In the spring, you can't plant brassicas like broccoli and so forth in the spring because those caterpillars that eat them up in the spring, they are coming into their life cycle, like they're just populating. Whereas in the fall, you can plant the brassicas, and then as the plant is maturing, their time of year that they can reproduce is going down. So you can produce things in the fall. You don't have nearly the pest pressure. Or like, what else? Squash. Squash are terrible to grow here in the spring because the squash vine borers and the squash bugs are so hard. But in the fall, you can plant them, like you could plant them here in the next few weeks. The plants will mature as the season is winding down. And so you've got these mature plants making fruit, and you don't have the pests that are putting pest pressure on them. Plus, as the season wears on, the fall gardening season, the weather gets more and more pleasant. So you'll be really glad for the work that you put in now to have a fall garden. So you don't have to go out. You probably in your area, like here in Dallas, we have North Haven Gardens, and they have reference lists on their website about when is good to plant things here in the North Texas area. Like on a certain day, you can start seeds here, and this particular month, you can start this outside or whatever. So look for a garden list for your area. And you notice I mentioned those cucumbers back there. Cucumbers are something that people plant in the spring. The thing is, it gets too hot and the cucumbers start suffering, and it doesn't keep making cucumbers. But those I'll put out in the next couple of weeks, and the plant will be maturing. And then as the weather gets cooler, it'll start making cucumbers. I mean, at least I think it will. We'll see. I'll report back. Come to a future live and you can find out if I made cucumbers. But that's the plan. So don't snooze on the fall gardening season. Now, another thing about fall gardening is that in your big box stores, the seeds and the vegetable plants, they're all over the place in the spring, but they're a little harder to find in the fall. Like the big box stores around here stop selling seeds pretty quick. So you'll either have to already have decided on your seeds and gotten them, or you'll have to order from somewhere like Baker Creek or Johnny's or something. Baker Creek does really good. Like they'll send you a seed packet and not charge you shipping. Johnny's has a little bit more shipping. But so you might need to plan ahead, or you might need to start your own seeds, which I am a huge fan of starting your own seeds. Maybe on a future live, as we're talking, we'll sit here and I'll do some seed starting so we can do that together. So don't snooze on that. And then besides the fall gardening season, there are, if you don't want to do gardening right now and you don't want to do gardening in the fall, you can right now do some very valuable things that will help you for next spring's gardens. Like let's say you're thinking maybe next year I might like to have another bed here. I might like to have another bed here. You can right now, you can take some steps that'll make it much easier and more pleasant for yourself next spring. And what I'm specifically talking about is something like a lasagna garden. Have you ever heard of a lasagna garden? It's where it's basically you're composting on a garden bed. That's basically what you're doing. So let's say if I wanted to start a new garden bed right here, either just out on the ground, or if I wanted to have some kind of a raised bed. So the first thing I would do is lay down cardboard, thick layer of cardboard or newspaper. Even if there's just grass there, doesn't matter. Just put it on there and then water that super good, because what you're trying to do is smother that grass, and you're also trying to get it to where it's not going to blow away. So water it really good. Then whatever you have access to, so garden clippings and leaves, or coffee grounds and straw or whatever. So if you're familiar at all with composting, you've got greens and browns. And so you want greens would be like grass clippings, right? Grass clippings are green. Coffee grounds are also a green. Greens are things that are high in nitrogen. So if you don't know it, Starbucks, especially if you ask them, and sometimes they do it automatically, even if no one has asked them, they will save their coffee grounds, and it's a big old bag. There's a Starbucks that I go to sometimes on the way to the farm, and I always say, I'll take all your coffee grounds. And then they load up my back of my car with whatever coffee grounds they have saved at the time, and then off we go. So you can do greens and browns, and just make it really high, because as it decomposes, it's going to come down. So you can go ahead and just compost right into that garden bed. And it takes a long time, but by next spring, you'll have beautiful soil there. Yesterday at the farm, which by the way, I just edited a video that I will publish tomorrow about yesterday at the farm. But one of the exciting things that happened yesterday at the farm was that I got a dump truck of soil, which may not sound all that exciting to some people, but it was very exciting to me. I think I can't remember if it was 4 or 5 yards of soil that I got, but I had these 5 garden beds that have been there for a while, and they hadn't had soil in them yet. I finally pulled the trigger and ordered the soil. But that thing of soil, it was like $400 or something. Is my husband still on? I hope not. But anyway, soil's expensive. And I did the math. It's more expensive if you buy it by the bag, like double. It's very expensive. So if you can do this lasagna method and just compost right into your garden bed, you can save yourself a lot of money. Do things that compost things that you have access to. Don't go buy stuff to compost. So that's a great thing. So I've been talking a lot. Somebody asked me a question. If you could solve one garden problem right now, what problem would you like to solve? Oh gosh. So not only is Philip still watching, but Philip's friends are watching. So I'm getting some comments about my $400 dirt. Yeah, he's making the point that what makes cucumbers bitter? I think it's staying on the vine too long, and I think it's also the heat. Gardening is so fickle. One year, the first year I ever grew cucumbers, I was drowning in cucumbers. That's the year I discovered that food pantries will take donations of garden produce. I never thought about that they would do that because I was drowning in cucumbers, and I was just taking bags and bags of cucumbers to a food pantry down in Farmers Branch. But that is another thing. If you do happen to get drowning in produce, food pantries would love your donations. And if you've ever volunteered at a food pantry before, you've seen that a lot of the food that's there is all packaged food and processed food. And so getting fresh produce is great. Talking about my husband and my $400 dirt. He's very, very sweet to me. He never gives me a hard time about what I do out at the farm. I guess being out farming, there's a lot other hobbies that could get me in more trouble than farming, I guess. Provided I don't perish in a dramatic tractor accident someday. Speaking of which, my bee mentee, she was out with me all day at the farm yesterday, and she not only wants to learn about bees, but she wants to learn about all the stuff out at the farm. So I was giving her tractor driving lessons yesterday. So that was fun. All right. Brad asked, back to cucumbers, growing them late in the year can help. I think so. Yeah, I really do think so. My plan is to, like I said, put these in the next couple of weeks. And then as the plant gets mature enough to actually make cucumbers, it'll be cooler. And I think that'll help. We'll discover this together, but I do believe so. I'm just a big fan of fall gardening. You know, when we went through COVID a few years ago, I don't know if y'all remember that, but there was a thing about 5 years ago called COVID, and we all lived through that together, and everyone was all excited about growing their own food, or I don't know if they were excited or if they were just scared, and so they were growing their own food. And then even like the next year, people got, complacent, and it wasn't nearly as popular even the next year. And by 2023, not much. And similarly, people are all excited about gardening in the spring. And then in the fall, they're like, get me out of here. I don't ever want to garden again. But I'm telling you guys, fall gardening is where it's at. It really is. I'm on my kitchen counter. If we were in there, I've still got 3 barrels of honey in there. I've got an 18-gallon stainless steel tank, and I've got 2 5-gallon plastic tanks still taking up room on my kitchen counter. So if you want honey, I encourage you to go to nonsensefarm.com/shop and order some honey. Now it is only for local pickup because the laws in Texas for a beekeeper to sell honey without bottling it in a commercial kitchen, you're supposed to only buy it from the beekeeper in an in-person transaction. You can purchase it online, but it has to be like you have to come to my house and get it, or I give it to you at church or whatever. So if you need honey, you should consider getting some, because we will sell out, even though I'm drowning in it now. Oh, speaking of honey, so normally I just do it in mason jars. It's very unofficial. But this year, since I have so much, I bought these jars. Isn't that cute? And I've designed a label to go here with the Nonsense Farm logo, and it'll have all the stuff on it that it's supposed to have, like the weight and all that kind of stuff. So I have a friend that sells at farmers markets and whatnot, and she's said if she can get permission from the people that she'll have this at her table, but that'll allow me to be able to sell it in more places if I have it properly labeled and whatnot. So I'm excited about that. All right, just a couple of more minutes. What else? What are your gardening questions? And what should we talk about next week? This week for the sourdough shenanigans video, I made sourdough pancakes, and I have not published that video yet. So be watching for that. And also be watching for the video that I Just finished editing about yesterday's exciting day at the farm with my truckload of dirt that arrived at the farm, and that is exciting. But I'll tell you, really, I think the most exciting thing that happened yesterday at the farm, and I didn't catch it on video, so I'll go ahead and tell you. But Celeste, my bee mentee, and she'll probably see this. Hi, Celeste. She, part of the mentoring process is one of the hives is hers. And we really thought it had gone queenless. We thought it had swarmed and gone queenless. And we're like, oh, we're not going to be able to do anything about that until after we do the honey harvest. There's too much to do in the bee yard. We can't do anything. Well, anyway, that was one of the hives that we checked out yesterday. Oh, sorry, Philip. You weren't here yesterday. Were you here yesterday? I don't know. Anyway, we checked her hive yesterday, and it had a queen, and she was laying up a storm. So we were super excited about that. I really thought we were going to have to start over from scratch with her colony. So that was fantastic. All right. Well, there's our half hour. I really appreciate each and every one of you being here. I'll be here next Thursday at 7 o'clock, and I'll decide what we're going to be talking about. Comment on the video if you have something you'd like to talk about next week, whatever that may be. And I so appreciate every single one of you so much. Bye.